is going on with the family. Let me turn my microphone down a little bit over here. And we are good to go. How y'all been, man? Y'all good? I ain't done a live in a minute, man. I've been very busy. I have not done a live in a minute, but I'm here with you guys. How y'all doing? What's up, Just Eve? I see you in your blue dress, looking like you got flued out. No, it's weird. Is that a woman? Hold on, over there. Hold on. Let me see. Hold on. There's somebody else over there. I don't know who that is. I can't tell. But shout out to Just Eve. Shout out to D Tubman. Shout out to everybody in here. Glad to have y'all tuning in. I have not done a live. It's been a minute since I've done a live, man. I've been getting a lot of stuff ready. We're getting everybody's holiday packages out. We're still getting those out. I think we got a few of them left. You guys can go to aretasase.com. We got the Aretasase package, where we have the book, the DVDs, the gift cards, a whole bunch of stuff. If you've gotten your package already, raise your hand because we've sent a lot of them out. Raise your hand if you've gotten your package already. If you received your package already, raise your hand. And we were getting that popping this weekend. We're wrapping up. We're finalizing the streaming app that we're going to have, that we're going to stream the new movie on. We're going to do a theatrical run around February, and then we're going to have the app. The app is going to be released before February, so you guys can kind of catch up on some of the other documentaries and some of the lectures. We're going to have a lot of my lectures on there. You know what I'm thinking about doing for the app? I'm thinking about doing Mac Lessons Reloaded and having it available on the app, guys. I'm thinking about doing a Mac Lessons Reloaded and having that available on the new streaming app. So we got a lot of good programming that we're going to do. That's going to be popping. And we're going to put more of the cartoons on. Oh, did y'all see the new game? The new video game, guys? People are loving the new video game app called Ugly Turtle. People are loving the Ugly Turtle app. People are loving it. Y'all got to post your high score. It's a very fun game. It's very addicting. My high score was like 2,000 and something. We're going to have contests this week. We're going to have some money contests. If people break certain high scores, we'll um, daily we'll give them like $50 or $100. All right. So this week we're going to have some high score contests for the Ugly Turtle game. The Ugly Turtle game is available now on the Apple Store. It's going to be available on the Google Play Store in a few days, but it's already blazing on the Apple iPod, iPad, what is it? iPhone store, whatever they call it, the Apple Store. So it's popping on there. And like I said, we're going to have some high score goals. If a person reaches like 4,000 points on there, we'll give a prize. We'll do daily prizes. So download your Ugly Turtle game now. It's a very fun game. It's about an ugly plebiscite babbling turtle that's running through Baltimore, jumping over rats, women with restraining orders, malt liquor bottles, and police officers with plea deals. So it's very, very petty, but it's a very fun game, ladies and gentlemen. I got a whole team of developers. There was a game. There was one game we were gonna get developed. I'm like, I don't want to be too petty. I had a game where I was gonna be clowning somebody, and the game was gonna be called Hungry Hungry Heifer. The Hungry Hungry Heifer game was so petty, I had to stop. I said, "Let me stop. This is too much. This is too low for me." I was like, I'm not going to receive any blessings if I put this petty shit out. This is just too low. Even there's a limit that I will go to. There's a limit that I will go as far as the petty. But listen, we got to talk the reparations thing. I put up a clip earlier of this suspected white supremacist. He's an author. He wrote a book, I think, called "The War on the West." I think something like that. So he's a British suspected white supremacist. His name is inconsequential. So they were talking about reparations in California. All eyes are on California right now, guys. People are looking at us right now because we're pushing that line as far as reparations. And what's happening is we're starting to talk numbers. Now, we're not where we need to be yet. We're not where we need to be. We're just talking numbers. Now, the reparations conversation is cool until numbers are discussed. And I always tell people about the importance of numbers. Always get to the numbers, push to the numbers. Because when you start pushing numbers and numbers are discussed, now we're getting somewhere. It is very important that we keep beating the drum talking about numbers. Let's normalize it. Let's talk about the numbers. So when you talk about the numbers, everybody goes on alert because see, people had no problem with us kind of discussing reparations because they knew the con game that was attached to all of the studies and the commissions and all of that. They had no problem with that. Yeah, y'all want to study reparations, study your ass off. You want to form a commission and you want to form a plebiscite, you can do all of that. But when they start hearing actual numbers, that's when them ears start perking up because when numbers are being discussed, that means it's time to start executing what you're going to put out there. So now when we start putting out numbers, you start hearing 233,000 per person. Oops. So now we're starting to get into the logistics of things, you see. Now we're starting to get into the logistics of how this is going to be carried out. So now the white supremacists, their ears are really perking up, you see. And we see a lot of hateful, trolling behavior coming from a lot of these people. So these people were on an Australian news show and they started talking about reparations here in California. Oh, Gavin Newsom ain't shit. These people, they didn't, nobody had a slave and those black people weren't enslaved. You know, the whole spiel they love spewing. And then the suspected white supremacist British man said something like, well, you know what we should do? We should form a company where we start registering people and just fake calling them descendants of slaves, and then I'll get a 10% cut out of it. Now, people think that that guy was kind of being trollish or joking. Nah, you better watch it. When these white supremacists joke, their jokes ain't really jokes. It start off as a damn joke, and they'll do that for real. You dig? So they're already talking about ways to undermine the reparations. Now, this British guy, why are they so butthurt? Come on now. Why are they so butthurt about us getting reparations in California? Why the international hate on reparations? Why are people from other countries kind of hating on reparations over here? Because I've seen a lot of suspected white supremacists all up in the UK talking about our reparations here. Now, our reparations doesn't have anything to do with them. We're talking about what we're supposed to be getting from the US government. But you know why they have a problem with us talking about reparations and really pushing that envelope and why they are watching it so closely? Because they understand when we get stuff popping over here, the world takes cues from us. When we start getting things popping, people start looking at us and getting cues, and they start then looking at their government. So these British people know if we get reparations popping over here, they know they are next. They're gonna have to start breaking bread too. They already know, so they're trying to get in front of it real quick and they're trying to sabotage it. But they know once we get this thing popping over here, some of the brothers in the Caribbean, brothers in Africa who were colonized by the British, they're going to be looking and they're going to be following our lead. You dig? And then we're going to follow our lead too because Britain, understand, they did have the 13 colonies initially. So we're going to holler at them when the time is right, by the way. You understand me? We will holler at them too when the time is right. But we're going to take care of A and B before we take care of C and D. Yeah, we're gonna holler at them about them 13 colonies too. You dig? Well, we're gonna holler at them about that, but we're gonna get this U.S. government thing straight first. There's a few people we're gonna holler at. We can holler at France too. They had Louisiana at one point. We can holler at them later on. Again, after we get it popping here, France, come on over here. Let me holler at you. Let me holler at you too, France. There's a few of them we'll holler at who was over here implementing slavery. We'll get at all of them. Yeah, yeah, they're not going to be let out of the loop. You know, and when we do that, then the Haitian brothers and sisters need to start hollering at them too. You see, but we always see this international hatred and almost sabotaging behavior for us trying to get reparations. And again, when it comes from those in the dominant society, they don't want other people to follow our lead. And then you have people who are not FBA who find ways to hate on it. And the reason they hate on it because they're not qualified to get it, you see. And if we start getting reparations, they look at it as, well, damn, that's less money for the DACA programs and the immigration programs, which is true, which is absolutely true. If we're spending, we're utilizing the funds for us, for foundational Black Americans, yeah, we're not going to sit up here funding the DACA program and all of these H-1 visas. And no, we're not going to be funding all that. So that's where that fear is. That's why we always got some person who's non-FBA coming in our mix, trying to undermine us as far as getting tangibles. Y'all remember that one dude, that Haitian dude who was all in these spaces about a week ago, who just kept getting debunked over and over again. And he was some do boy for Warnock. He worked for the Democrats. And y'all remember all the bad faith arguments this guy had? He just got caught in lie after lie after lie. And they send these people around us to basically waste our time, to spin our wheels and have us talking in circles with them, so we're not focused on what we're supposed to be getting. So we gotta cut out a lot of that time wasting that the dominant societies send their trolls around us to do. That is a technique that they do, to send people around us to babble and bullshit so that we can't get what we need to get, so we won't be focused. All right, let me get some folks in here. We got a lot of people in here. So let me get some of the family in here. What's up, Juicy Genius? I see you. I see you. T.S. Giselle, I don't know. T.S. Giselle talking about he got flued out. Oh, Lord, I don't even want to know. Okay, let's get some folks in here. Let me see what's on everybody's mind tonight. All right, let's get Yo Auntie Like Me. What's up, Yo Auntie Like Me? You want to turn your
Yo,
microphone on?
yo,
What's
brother,
that?
peace. Hey, Tariq, peace to your family.
What's going on, man? What's going on? What's on your mind?
Man, cool, brother, man. Just sitting here, just listening in, man. Definitely, man. I know one thing, man. I'm down for what California is most definitely doing. I can't wait for it to start to trickle down, man. And I just really want to say I'm definitely keeping my head on the swivel with all these
Yeah,
other folks running around here talking about that I need this and I need that. Nah, player. This ain't for you. This is for us.
yeah.
And I'm
Yes,
glad that
indeed.
We're not taking it no more. And with our
Real talk.
generation, you feel me?
Real talk, man. Much respect to you, brother. Let's get Jim Crow. We have Jim Crow in here, a white man named Jim Crow. What's up, Jim Crow? Jim Crow, turn your microphone on, sir. All right, Jim Crow. All right, Jim Crow bounced. I guess it wasn't time for Jim Crow. Let's get Ignatius Smith. Ignatius, hop on, man.
How are we doing, Tariq?
I'm good. I'm good. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the whole reparations thing. I'm not totally opposed to it. It's just uh, I'm curious. I could imagine a scenario where if the reparations were handed out, and then 10 years later, if things hadn't drastically changed, um, where there might be a second round of asking for such reparations or uh, other things. And I'm just curious, if I were to be an individual who supported reparations, is there would that be a one time thing, or would that ever come back up, or how do you
No,
see
it
that playing
wouldn't.
out?
That's a good question. It would not be a one-time thing because the compensation, it has to be continued. Just like the Native Americans, they don't just give them a one-time thing. It's a continuous thing, and rightfully so. So we deserve triple that, because we actually built the country, and it wasn't a one-time thing when they were generationally enslaving our people and forcing them to give their labor to build the wealth. So they have to compensate us with the same thing they took from us. Now, where are you from? I hear an accent. Are you Irish? Where are you from?
I'm from Missouri.
Missouri. Okay. Okay. Um, reparations is that would be a great step to healing. That would be a great faith step to say, hey, look, we want to do the right thing as far as people in the dominant society. It will help the economy greatly, because right now there's a psychic, real perverted, um, um, intangible benefit that the dominant society gets for knowing that black people are just having it stuck to them. We're not getting anything, so you're sticking it to the black people by denying us something, and that's really that is not benefiting anything. Denying us our reparations, where you're paying us directly, because what happens is you're already paying a form of reparations when you have to pay these police officers to give them these militarized weapons. That's where the reparations money is going, in order to keep us subjugated. So instead of throwing money away for psychic satisfaction of seeing black people abused, because we're not taking the shit and we keep rising up against it, which costs more money, and that's more money that can go to reparations. Just do the damn right thing and give us the money we're supposed to get, and let's have a peaceful, equitable society. Wouldn't that make sense?
It does, but so I mean, you think if reparations were handed out, that the black crime rate, which is, Tariq, I'm sure you know this, it's disproportionately per capita very high. I mean, you think it would come down, just that simple fact of
Okay, well,
reparations? I mean,
let's. Okay, so why is the black crime rate so high? Let's get into it. Let's find out. Why is the black crime rate so high?
well, I'm curious what. I think there's a multitude of factors.
Like what? Like what?
Well, I mean, obviously, you're growing up in decrepit neighborhoods, poverty, cycle of poverty, things
Oh,
like that. But
so
I don't think.
why do black people grow up in decrepit neighborhoods and cycles of poverty?
But I don't think you could ignore things like, uh, you know, uh, the glorification of violence in the community, and
So,
which I'm Tariq. I'm sure you're probably not the biggest fan of rap music, right? It's almost a little degrading to the black community, where gang violence, bitches this, bitches that, talking about your own black woman, and
right.
uh, gangs and money and strippers and killing
So
people, and
why do so? Okay, let's slow it down, because I want to unpack everything you're saying, sir. So why do black people have to depend on rap careers where they degrade themselves and they get millions of dollars by white companies to do so? Why do they have to do that?
well, white companies is one way to put it. But well, I don't
Why?
know.
That's a legitimate question. Why do white companies give black people millions of dollars to degrade themselves?
Well, I know that if a lot of times, if a black individual starts to go strongly to class, speaks a certain way, does certain things, they get bullied by their fellow black classmates. I see some
Really?
laughing emojis. I think we all know this is true.
Well,
The
I speak a certain way. I'm articulate. I'm a pretty smart dude. Nobody ever bullied me for being a smart guy, and other people like me.
You've heard the phrase "you act white," correct?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with articulation. Charles Barkley acts white, and he's some of the one of the most inarticulate Negroes on the planet. So he acts white, and he's not articulate. Some of the people that you see on Sports Center talking, they act white, and they are bumbling fools. Herschel Walker acts white, and he's a bumbling buffoon.
I'll tell you what. I think.
Acting white has nothing to do with articulation.
Well, I think if you would, I mean, I think that's. I think if some people talk a certain way, people say you're talking white. I mean, I saw a recent
No,
interview
it's
with
not. No, no, no.
Deion
No, no. Listen.
Sanders.
Okay, listen. What I'm telling you, I'm a part of black culture. I'm telling you, when we say talking white, that doesn't mean your articulation level. That means the stupid shit you're saying means you're talking white. You understand? It's something that the person said that makes us say you sound white, not the articulation. There are plenty articulate black people. Malcolm X was articulate. Nobody considered him talking white. Martin Luther King was articulate. Cornel West is articulate. Articulate black people. I have my sister Teslin. Teslin's a very articulate sister. Nobody accuses her of talking white. Marcel is articulate. Many of us are articulate. Articulation doesn't mean that you're talking white or there's a lack thereof. It's really what you're saying and the content of what you're saying. That's what we mean by talking
I
white.
feel that.
Yeah,
Okay,
got
and
it.
I'm curious, Trick. What do you think a bigger problem in the Black community or the foundational Black American community, as you guys put it? Which I do like that term. Whoever came up with that, was that you, Tariq? I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, well, it was kind of an amalgamation of what Claude Anderson came up with. He referred to us as Native Black Americans, but many people were getting confused. Like, do you mean a Black Indian? So I just kind of threw the word foundational on it just to differentiate, and it took off from there. But go ahead.
No, I do like that. Would you
Thank you.
consider white racism from the police and things of this nature, or the 75% out of wedlock rate a bigger problem in the Black community?
Hmm. So the out of wedlock rate, how is that a problem? How is that a bigger problem than the white supremacist police officers?
Well, I think even Barack Obama talked about this in 2010. I think he remarked how, and the scientific, or I guess scientific, but the research is pretty clear on the link between uh, single mother homes and dropping out of school, educational achievement, prison likelihood, uh, criminal inclination, things of that nature, and the link
Here's
between.
here's the problem with that. During the so-called Jim Crow era, when black men and women were married and the wedlock, having children in wedlock, that was shit, 90%, I would say,
Very high, correct.
very, very high. Guess what? The black crime rate was still high. It was extremely high. The black crime rate has always been disproportionately higher than that of white society. Always. Going back to the 1800s, the black crime rate has always been high. You know why?
I'm curious.
Hmm? Because more things are criminalized for black people to do in a system of white supremacy. That's why the crime
Mm,
rate is high, because more things are criminalized. Going back
I
into
think
Jim Crow.
assault and drug dealing and homicide and arson and robbery and grand theft. I think these are criminalized for all communities. I'm not sure if
No,
I
they're
could.
not. No, 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 no.
Eh,
No. Name the Black Cow Rittenhouse.
I mean, there's a lot of black individuals who use self defense. I mean, obviously in Southside Chicago, I'm sure.
Name a black person who went to an area planning on shooting somebody and saying that they were going to shoot somebody on video, and they had a court system.
So
Uh
I
huh.
think Kenosha is not a black community. It's
Right.
90% white, and he
Right.
only shot three white
Right.
individuals.
Because the black people saw what he was trying to do. The black people saw that he was out there trying to ambush people, and they avoided him. That's why the white guys attacked Kyle, because they saw what he was going to do, because the brothers pointed Kyle out. But you never see, I'm just saying, you don't see a black version of that. More things are illegal for black people to do than those in the dominant society. You guys can literally get away with murder.
So you think the higher crime rate is simply because
More
the
things are criminalized for
attention is
black
paid
people.
there?
Uh-huh. More things are criminalized for black people. You say drug dealing, crystal meth is the biggest drug in the country. They don't criminalize crystal meth, sir. They let y'all sit up there, smoke it, sell it all over the place. They're not filling the prisons with white meth addicts and dealers. More things are illegal for us to do, but black people with weed are lining up the damn prisons. They got black people in jail for years for weed. More things are
Uh,
criminalized for black people. That's all, because blackness, they've criminalized blackness itself. So that's why the crime rate is high under a
well,
system of supremacy, right?
didn't you see the thing with Joe Biden's executive order releasing marijuana possession, nonviolent criminals from federal prison? There was many articles that it only ends up releasing about 10 people because there's so few locked up for simply possession. The majority of the times it's pounds and distribution, selling. There's not really. I'm pretty sure
But
it's
that
it's
and
it's
that I
not
think
really just they had a joint and you
and
know.
I think that was for the federal level people, and most of the people that's locked up are on local level. So
That's
there was a
correct. Local and state,
yeah.
yeah.
So nobody fell for that game. That was a whole con game and finesse game within itself. So that was a hey, let me help you, let me show blacks I'm doing something for blacks. I'm letting a couple of weed dealers out, and we didn't fall for that bullshit, man.
But I'm
Again,
curious, so you really don't think that like Southside Chicago is or Baltimore is more violent than Burlington, Vermont, or any of these, as you would say, white neighborhoods? I mean, you think that's simply an illusion, a white supremacy construction, where Baltimore or Southside Chicago, it's not objectively more violent than these other communities? I mean, I find that hard to believe. You really think that?
yeah, no one in the history of mankind is more violent than the white supremacists. I mean, the white supremacists, they commit whole genocides. They don't do that in Chicago. The white supremacists, they've wiped out millions of Aborigines in Australia. All of the Tasmanians, they wiped out thousands and thousands
Well,
of
I'm
people.
talking about today in America.
And we're talking about today all over the world, sir. This is what they do. They wipe whole groups of people out. Nobody is more violent than a white supremacist, sir. And then we have a so called police force or police agencies around the country that have damn killers in there who are getting into these agencies in order to have a green light to kill people with impunity. And usually these people are black. So nobody's more violent than the white supremacists. We can't talk about some people in Chicago and in Baltimore because their violence, it's based on systematic white supremacy and economic deprivation. Anytime you put a group of people in a situation where there's economic deprivation, there's going to be violence that has nothing to do with race. You understand?
I do, but why? I suppose you'll answer that it's the system not looking and criminalizing their actions. But
Right.
the crime rates in a poor, beat down West Virginia in terms of violent crime,
Hmm.
much less comparably to uh, similar economic levels of black neighborhoods.
Well,
But
you know
I'm
why?
sure.
West Virginia, if there's a person in danger and they're poor, the police will come and help that person. The police will go and help that white person who's in danger. In black neighborhoods, we don't get police services. If a black person is being threatened or if a black person is in danger, nobody protects a black person at all. So black people unfortunately end up having to protect themselves, and then that becomes black on black crime. Because when we talk about criminal activity in certain black neighborhoods, it's not two drug dealers going at it. Usually somebody's defending themselves from a criminal because the police won't do it. The police are infamous for not rendering real services for black neighborhoods. Black people don't want to get robbed in poor neighborhoods. They're just because a person is poor, that doesn't mean they want people breaking into their homes. The police ain't doing nothing to stop the criminal element. So, unfortunately, a lot of black people have to take the law into their own hands, and then that becomes a black on black crime statistic. So, the problem is resource deprivation, systematic white supremacy, and that's further reason why we need reparations so that we can have our own police agencies out here policing our own neighborhoods. Wouldn't that make sense?
It does, but what do you say? And I'm sure you'll say it's the system that's important. But in a majority of these all black cities, or black neighborhoods of the cities, sure, uh, vast majority, oftentimes the majority of the police officers are of color. So
No,
and I'm sure you'll say it's the system, right?
no. You thought you were being real slick by saying of color. They're not black. All right, and
Well, I
you
didn't
knew
want to
not
say
to,
black because
right
sometimes
because you
sometimes you
knew
say
you knew,
black and
no,
can be taken
no,
as
because no,
offensive.
it's not true. Because most of these people on the police force in these cities are not black. That's why you said of color. Now, are they of color? Yeah, yeah. But a lot of these people of color are anti-black themselves. You understand?
So it's
So
not white supremacy as much as it's anti-black.
that's what it is. It's anti-black, and it's still white supremacy because these other people of color who you're talking about, most of them classify themselves and they identify as white. You understand?
I don't. I mean, the city close to me, there's a lot of black policemen
And what city you in?
close to St. Louis.
close to St. Louis. There's a bunch of white officers out there. In Ferguson, we had a whole big thing out there years ago with the whole Mike Brown thing, with all of those white officers out there killing people. Well, the white officer who killed Mike Brown, um, it's full of white officers out there. Yeah, you have some black ones, but yeah, most of those officers are white out there. You understand?
Yeah, but it is worth noting Barack Obama's DOJ, Tariq, you know this. Barack Obama's DOJ did do a thorough investigation, and
Uh
their
huh.
conclusion was now maybe you don't like Barack Obama, maybe, but
I know y'all do the same thing. Eric Holder, they did a quote unquote investigation and they just went along with the program. Eric Holder is a non FBA, comes from an immigrant background. So is Barack Obama. What is that saying? These guys are maintaining and upholding the system of white supremacy. They didn't punish any white supremacists for harming a black person while they were in office. So bringing them up, that's a non sequitur. Their job was to not punish any white people. They didn't do anything, and more black people were killed under the Obama administration than every black person who was killed in Jim Crow combined. We were getting slaughtered under Obama, and he didn't do anything about it. That's why white people really didn't have a problem with Obama. This fake objective thing about Obama, they didn't have a problem with Obama. Obama helped maintain white supremacy
they were getting slaughtered by other whites or by the
by
crime in the
whites
Chicago.
by whites and law enforcement. And the white people and the white folks in law enforcement weren't getting punished for it because see, the black people who kill people in Chicago, they go to jail. You see, that kind of deters other black people from doing that. The white people who were killing black people, none of them got punished. So do you think that's a just society?
Now, when you talk about police killings, do you so when you see the flat numbers, when you see police killings, do you consider the killings in which black individuals are armed with guns and knives and in altercations with police and lethal force is used? Uh, do you see that as an injustice, or do you only consider unarmed as the injustice, as the killings being slaughtered?
There have been so many protests and battles against these black people out here who were unarmed, killed by police. Let me ask you something. Out of all the cases of black people getting killed by police, by white cops in particular, where the white cop got off, which is in many of them, do you feel that the white cop should have been punished in any of those cases? I'm asking you that personally. Do you feel that there's a white cop who killed a black person and got off, but they should have been punished? Just one case.
Yes, I think off the top of my head, I think his name was Flando Castile,
Uh
where he
huh.
was in the car. Do I have that correct?
Right, Philando Castile. Uh huh.
Yeah, that one comes to top of mind.
Officer Yan.
Um,
You believe Officer Yanez should have went to jail, right?
I do. Now yeah, mostly because I mean he was armed, but he told the guy, hey, I'm armed. He told the guy, and then
Right.
he shot him after he reached. So that one was pretty egregious, and I don't think that cop got punished. Correct?
Right. He didn't get punished, and he wasn't really
Yeah,
white. He wasn't. He was. Well, he was white Hispanic, but
yeah.
so
And
you
then
you
the
can say
George Floyd cop, what was his
right.
name? Derek Chauvin got punished. Those are the only ones that really come to mind. The cops. I mean, the Breonna Taylor. uh, the no knock. I think that's more of an indictment on the no knock search as much as it is white supremacy, because they did get shot at by the boyfriend. Now, how was the boyfriend to know it was police? Right, obviously,
Yeah,
but
they got
I think
shot at because they
that's more of an indictment on the no knock search as much as it is whites
really.
being racist. Right.
No, that was kind of racist for them to just go in there with guns blazing and then they don't punish the people who did it. They going in there shooting unarmed, well, not unarmed, but they were shooting innocent black people. That was kind of racist. That was kind of white supremacist.
But I think to frame it as they went in shooting when they got shot at first. Now, obviously, I think the no knock search is
No,
what's to blame. But
no, no. They didn't get shot at first. They kind of went in there guns blazing, and
I
then they
think the
shot.
boyfriend shot first at the police, correct?
No, because didn't they were outside shooting inside, and then they got in trouble for shooting in somebody else's apartment. The cops. So the cops were shooting first, and the brother was returning fire. That's why he got off, and I think they just gave him a settlement. I think.
I think the federal government just brought civil rights charges. I think I think Garland
Yeah,
did. I think I saw that.
yeah, it was against them shooting in the other person's apartment. Nobody got punished for actually killing Breonna Taylor. Nobody, nobody. You see, so
Yeah.
they do all of these little janky symbolic gestures, but the people who actually killed that innocent black woman who was in her house with no clothes on, nobody got punished. So that type of stuff, that's just white supremacy. That has nothing to do with a no knock because you, we're the white women who are getting killed by no knock warrants.
Oh, I just I'm sure they. I mean, I'm sure they can. I mean, well, I'll pose this, Tariq. You know the famous video of the white individual in the hallway of a hotel, and the cop has an AR-15 on him.
I
Uh,
remember that he was
he
crying
tells,
and on his knees, and he
"Don't,
shot him
don't."
in.
Yeah, I mean that. So that there's just the videos. I mean, one of the most egregious, other than the George Floyd, one of the most egregious on video in the Philando
Right,
Castile, but one of the
right.
top five egregious police killings I've ever seen. And that guy was white as snow, and it was almost like they were looking to kill him.
Yeah, and that was a white sacrifice. Every now and then they might get a white person, but for the most part, where it's normalized, they're really getting at black people. And didn't they punish that cop who shot that kid?
No, they didn't.
They
There might
didn't
have
do
been
anything.
a settlement from the city, but I don't think.
Okay, yeah, yeah. They
Yeah.
just, every blue moon they'll do a white sacrifice. A white person might get hit, and they'll rectify it very, very quickly. So yeah, that's not the same as all of these black people being slaughtered by these suspected white supremacists working within law enforcement, where it's completely normalized now, where you have these extremist groups getting into law enforcement and in the Secret Service. There was some that came out today saying there was some white supremacists working for the Secret Service at one point in 2015. So it's insane out here. This is why we got to get reparations.
So, do you think that like we'll say genocide, I guess, or ethnic violence. So you seem to think it's inherent to white European individuals, but I'm just curious, how do you square that with, in Africa, there's ethnic rivalries, ethnic Rwandan genocide, and even going back into the days of Zulu, where slaughtered tribes and towns, conquering, wiping out hundreds, thousands of people. How do you square placing this type of violence solely on white people when there's such a history in Africa, even in 1600s, 1700s, old days, and even recently in the 90s with the Rwandan genocide. You know,
Yeah.
so how do you because if you only say that's a white thing, but there's got to be some explanation for why it also shows up. Like I said, old days in Africa with ethnic tribes, Zulu, right, conquering a lot of Africa, slaughtering the opposing tribes, and then even
Yeah.
recently with the Rwandan genocide. It seems
No.
almost a little eh, like you just have an axe to grind with white people and say it's only them. And I'm curious.
Okay. Well, number one, you just made up a whole narrative. I've never said it was only white people. And I don't have an axe to grind because you just created a whole narrative that I've never said. I've never said it was only white people who were committing genocide or violence. So we got to be very careful with not projecting as far as what's going on in I don't live in Africa, nor has any of my family members. My family has not been in Africa for centuries. So whatever they're doing over there, they got to get that shit together. We're not over here as foundational black Americans committing genocide to anybody. We're not killing large groups of people. We're not harming large groups of people. We're not wiping out large groups of people. We've been saving groups, if anything. We've been the most patriotic people over here. And there is only one system of global racism, and that is systematic white supremacy. Now, when we do want to look at the Rwanda situation, we have to look at who orchestrated that and who pitted these groups against each other. They were colonized by the European powers. These British white supremacists would arm these people and instigate these things. Now, again, we don't have to fall for the instigation, but these people who are doing the instigating, they don't have to do that either because when they dominate and conquer all non white people globally and then deprive them of resources, they can get them to do their bidding by throwing resources to one group or another. That's why reparations are so very important over here. That goes right back to reparations, because when we don't have the resources we need, we can be controlled and dominated, and they can have us doing all types of wild shit for just a couple of crumbs. So this is why we need to have a just and equitable society and give us the tangibles that we are owed as foundational black.
I guess I'm just curious though, with reparations, how would it make a difference? How would it fix things any more than the welfare state since the '60s, which can be construed almost similar to what reparations would be, which would be money from the government? How would it make any more of a difference than the vast sums of money that have been handed out?
Well, the thing is, reparations is not welfare. Reparations is something that's owed specifically to us. Welfare was created for white women. That's why more people on welfare are white. The majority of
Now,
people on welfare are white. Yeah, it was created. Well, reparations was created for white women in the 1930s whose husbands were dying working in them coal mines and all of them dangerous jobs. They needed to have something to sustain these white women and their children when their husbands died. So welfare was for them. Black people started getting more access to it in the 1960s, but
yeah,
even today, more white people get reparations. So, welfare. More white people get welfare. The welfare capital is Owsley County, Kentucky, where 98% of the people are white and 98% of them are on welfare. Damn near the whole town is on welfare. So that's not the same as reparations. Everybody can get welfare. Illegal immigrants come over here and get welfare. So we need specific tangibles for us, for foundational Black Americans, so the wealth gap can close.
but I guess my question was more how would it make any of difference of a tangible difference? How would, because by reparations, do you mean just like checks given out, or the the creation of institutions that would then be staffed with
Check.
blacks?
Look, we're
You
talking about
just
money. Look, okay, listen, because see, when we talk about welfare, that's not, you can't do anything with welfare. You can't really start businesses with that. You can't really build anything with welfare is crumbs. They give you an EBT card, maybe $500-600 a month. That's not, and maybe a Section 8 voucher, but that's, and you have to live in a certain neighborhood. No, no, no. That's, you can't really build anything off that, and you can't really transfer that wealth to the next generation. Welfare is just crumbs. Reparations, when we're talking about numbers such as 233,000 per person, now we can build something with that, and that's a great start. That's something that we can transfer to our children. That's something that we can invest in as far as real estate. We can invest in business endeavors. We can circulate that money for real into the economy. So we can do things with that money to really get ourselves out of a hole. So vast difference than welfare.
now, do you envision the vast majority of foundational Black Americans using the reparations to invest in businesses and companies and other things of that nature?
A lot of us will, because we have a lot of ingenuity. If you give 10 black people reparation money, 230,000 each, five of those people are going to be millionaires the next year. Now, the other five, will they go buy sneakers? Yeah. Will some of them go buy flat screen TVs? Yes. Will they go buy hair weave bundles? Yeah. But I'm looking at those five black people who are going to become millionaires, because that's the most important thing to me. And we're
Okay.
old. Yeah, we're owed the money. This is a debt that's owed to us. You see.
Okay. And now, I'll shut up here soon. I don't mean to, hog but I think this is a pretty good conversation. I think
I, I'm
hopefully
not. I'm not
people agree.
offended by anything. No, this is a decent conversation. We're getting clarity here. Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious if white supremacy is still so dominant, and it's still such a stranglehold, and it's still the prevailing ideology or modes of being that um, is what's controlling society. How do you square that with the 5 decades of immigration, legal and illegal, that has and policies that have lowered the white birth rate, black as well, but just for the sake of what I'm saying, the white birth rate to where we're teetering on being no longer the majority in the country. If it was such a white supremacist society still to this day. Obviously, 40s, 50s, 60s. Obviously, I don't think anybody in the country would deny it was white supremacy. But if since that era it's still so white supremacy, why would that white supremacist country institute policies, immigration, all this LGBT stuff, indoctrination of children not to have kids, but specifically immigration? Why would that white supremacy society institute policies that would, within the next 30 years, place us into a minority within the country? That
Well,
I have a hard time understanding that.
here's the thing. You got to understand, all of these other groups were allowed into whiteness. That's the only reason they had immigration. The reason they started mass immigration in the United States was to bolster white numbers. Even in the 1800s, when they saw black people getting free after the Civil War, right after the Civil War, they said, "Hey, come on, let me bring me your sick and your tired and your huddled masses from Europe." They started bringing whole immigrant groups from Europe who weren't really considered white yet. The Greeks weren't considered white. The Italians weren't considered white yet. They had to be hazed into whiteness. That's why they were calling Italians guineas over here. Guinea means African.
The
That's what
WAPs.
Guinea. Yeah, without papers. But yeah, Guinea. The Guinea means African. The way they look like black people. That's what they were saying about Italians. Then later on, they allowed them into whiteness. The Irish, they allowed them into whiteness. The Greeks, they allowed them into whiteness. The Hispanics, when they started letting Hispanics over, they allowed them into whiteness. So they kind of go through a hazing process with some of these immigrant groups, because these immigrant groups are going to have to learn what whiteness is. That's why when they come over here, the first thing these immigrant groups do is display vile anti-blackness. That is the test, to come over here and show how anti-black they can be, so they can be allowed into the reigns of whiteness. This is why when they come here, they classify themselves as white. So that's the thing that's going to bolster the white numbers, bringing over these groups and hazing them into whiteness so that the white numbers can go up. Because the Anglo white numbers, they've been down. Anglo whites have been a minority for a long time. So all of
Yeah,
these
it's
other
it's mostly German descendants and Irish descendants at this point.
Right. So yeah, the Anglos have been a minority. So all of these other groups, these people who you think are white, if you look at their background, a lot of these people are actually Middle Eastern. Many of them are Hispanic. They just changed their names. You understand? So a lot of people don't realize that. So it's very interesting. Remember Steve Jobs? Steve Jobs, and rest in peace with Steve Jobs. I think he was Middle Eastern. He just looked like a regular white man, but he was Middle Eastern.
What was he
So
like? Maybe I know a lot of, was he maybe Lebanese? I know a lot of Lebanese folks look white.
yeah. I think I know he was from over there somewhere. I know he was from over there somewhere. But a lot of these guys,
Yeah.
you dig?
That definitely makes sense within the 20s and the 1800s with the Irish, the Germans, the Italians, bolster white population. But I don't know how I can square that because, specifically they abolished the country of origin requirements in 1965 with the Hart-Celler Immigration Act, where then they allowed in immigration from India and China and Africa and Latin America,
Oh yeah.
specifically objectively non-white groups. And even I think today, if you go around to Latinos, some of them are white passing and maybe will adopt white identity, but man, some of them are just objectively brown, and a lot of them they go to the universities and they they get hit with this CRT white supremacy stuff, and I think it's hard to imagine them ever wanting to be assimilated into a white
Man,
identity. So
man.
I don't understand why would a white supremacy society let in millions of people from India, China, Africa to dilute their numbers. It doesn't seem to make much logical sense. Maybe in the
Well,
1920s, but once you allow non-Europeans in, doesn't that fall apart some way?
in the 1960s, 1965 in particular, the reason why they started letting over some of these darker people from India and Africa, that was because of black people. Black people had the civil rights movement going on, and we were out there in the streets stomping hard, and we said, hey, we can't have this thing where you are not allowing black people to come over here, because they had a very low immigration rate for black people coming from African Caribbean. And we said, hey, enough of that. Let our brothers and sisters come over here. We got civil rights. We want to have the same kind of rights for these immigrant groups. So that's when they started coming over here in significant numbers. And after a while, they started using some of these groups as buffer groups against us. The white supremacists figured, okay, if we let all of these black people in here, let's pull some of these immigrant groups to the side and tell them that they're somehow better than the foundational black Americans here. And we can use these black people who are non FBA, we can use them to do our bidding. And that's when they started letting a lot of these non FBA people run these black organizations. If we look at Black Lives Matter and certain other organizations, a lot of these people are non FBA, especially now. A lot of these black groups that you see are these black organizations, and hell, the black
A lot of
politicians.
Jews.
You know, I'm talking about black folks. I'm talking about the black people who you think are black, but they are, or who you think are foundational black American, and they're not really foundational black American. When you look at
Gotcha.
people like Kamala Harris and others, Colin Powell, all of these people come from Caribbean or some type of African background, but they come from non FBA backgrounds, and that's by design. That's not a coincidence.
So even when they speak the language of white supremacy and black liberation, the non FBAs, do you guys still look at them with suspicion or some kind of maybe as if they don't fully understand the history of the problem?
No, no, no.
Is that a correct assessment?
We get some FBAs who are talking against white supremacy and talking about black empowerment. We rock with them. We rock with them 100%. But the white supremacists, they kind of stop too many of them from coming over here. You know, when they start bringing people over here now, they're going to make sure they understand what your ideology is. They're not going to get a person from Africa who's a revolutionary minded person. They're not going to bring in people from the Caribbean who are revolutionary minded. They're going to screen them and make sure that they're going to toe the line for white supremacy for the most part. Now, you might have some second generation brothers and sisters who are born here who might be on the same wave as us, but who they're bringing over now, it's not really people who are going to buck the system.
Yeah, but it is worth noting though that when we speak of the white population becoming a minority, that's totally based off of self-reported, self-identified racial identity within the census. So
Right,
with
but
what you're saying,
that has nothing to
but
do
but
with
those numbers come from people saying, I am Hispanic, I am black, I am Indian, and de facto then I am not white. So, but then if you were saying is that they're brought over to be assimilated into whiteness to bolster up white numbers and block out foundational black Americans, that doesn't seem to be panning out because those non-white numbers are self-identified. Those are self-reported.
right, and you
Do you know
have
what
to
I'm
understand.
saying?
But a lot of the Hispanics who come over, even though they might be brown, they classify themselves as white. For example, you mentioned Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, over there in Puerto Rico, 80% of the people classify themselves as white, and they're darker than me. You have
In
Asians
Puerto
who
Rico or in
come,
America?
I'm talking about in Puerto Rico, in Puerto Rico. And
Mm-hmm.
when they come over here, they're not going to change their status to something else. They're going to keep their status as white. You have a lot of people from India who classify as white. Kamala Harris's mother, look at the birth certificate. Her mother lists Caucasian as her race. So a lot of these other non-white groups still classify themselves as white, and they're going to have a white mentality, a white supremacist mentality for the most part, even though they don't even get all the benefits of white supremacy in many cases.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that line of reasoning doesn't seem to be reflected in the self-reported, self-identified every 10-year census.
It's there. When you see the white population or the white numbers, yeah, that includes all of these other groups. That's why sometimes they'll say, well,
But it's
uh,
still
white,
declining though. That's what I'm saying.
yeah, it's declining because the white birth rate is like it's almost it's a zero birth rate. You're dying faster than you're being born. You,
Exactly.
yeah,
But
so
but then so then why would, because we see the stuff that goes on in the schools in Tariq, I love this thing you've talked about in the past with how they have these black celebrities put on dresses to emasculate the foundational black Americans and they push this gay stuff to undermine your guys' community. It's so true. But
right,
why would a white supremacist society then do that to white folk? I mean, you see the stuff in these white suburban neighborhoods, these white neighborhoods with these drag shows and the transgender they're pushing and all of this
yeah,
stuff.
right,
That's playing a large part in our birth rate being so low, and it's all on our TVs and the movies and in kid shows. Why would a white supremacist dominated society ever push that? even on the white population. We see this all the time.
Right.
So
Yeah, they will sacrifice those in white society because again, they want to. Yeah, the key word is trans. They want to get that word trans out there and keep the word trans out there, not just transgender. Trans is going to be transhumanism too. They want to get into the transhumanism thing. This is why so many of these people in tech are into the transhumanism thing, where they want to start morphing people's bodies with machines, and they want the government to pay for it. The, they're talking about all of these sex changes and all of these things, and they want it to be normalized so that the public will start paying for this stuff and they can better control people. When they start linking people up to machines and computers and all of that, you can control the population better. The name of the game is to always control people, and unfortunately, they want to control white society too. That's why y'all shouldn't be on that going along with white supremacy thing, because that's been somewhat of a con game too. You have the white supremacists on top telling you you have a more of a camaraderie with me, so let's join together to dominate those dark people over there. But the well-to-do elite white people are dominating the middle class and the poor whites as well. All
I,
of it is
yeah,
all about control. But the thing
but
is, y'all go along with that.
I agree with but I agree with the control. But wouldn't that then lead credence to a narrative where, well, maybe it's not totally about these people on top of the society. And let's be honest, the people that are controlling most of the levers of society, they're not white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. They tend to belong to a different tribe. But wouldn't that lend credence to the idea that the people on top, the elites, financial sector, media, banking, Hollywood, corporations, you said they're mostly interested in control. So wouldn't
Hmm.
that lead credence to the idea that, it's not them against black people, it's really them against humanity, it's really them against people, it's really them against free individuals. And then maybe, our communities should stop being at each other's necks, and we should look each other eye to eye and say, they're the enemies of humanity, of people, they want to control us. Let's not be pitted against each other going over things that happened 400 years ago of ancestors we didn't know. And even like you said, most of the people here today are immigrants from late 1800s, early 1900s. Most of the white folk here today, they can't trace an ancestor back to slavery. So wouldn't we say then, maybe we should lock arms, and we can talk about things that did happen to the black community that play a role in the economic situation, crime rate, right, things like that. But really the main enemy then would be these people who want to control the population, no matter the race, who steal our money, who start these foreign wars, who ship the jobs overseas, who hollow out neighborhoods, and we should, come together in some sense
Well,
against that class.
all right, but the thing is, when my people were enslaved and their labor was used to build the wealth of the country, all the white people benefited from that wealth and our labor, and they had no problem with us being subjugated. Even the ones who came over from other countries, they heard about all of this wealth that was over here. And they heard about something called whiteness, and they said, if you come over here, your whiteness will be monetized, and you can come up off the labor of these black people who were subjugated. And people from Europe said, sign me up. Which boat do I take to get over there? So they knew what they were getting into. And if you come over and you receive a debt, you still owe on that debt. If we want to have a society where we lock arms, lock that check in my hand and then we'll lock arms first. You understand? Let me get that check first and then I'll lock arms. Purse first, ass last. We're owed money. And everybody who came over here and everybody who was here before benefited from foundational black Americans being enslaved and building this country from the ground up. So we have to be compensated for that. Then we can talk about kumbaya and breaking bread. Wouldn't that make sense?
It does. And I don't mean kumbaya, but, because obviously, naturally, tribalism's a real thing. You'd
Right,
agree.
right.
So I don't think you're ever going to have, 100% of blacks, 100% of whites, holding hands, singing "We Are the World," Michael Jackson style. I think that's,
Right.
a
And
Disney view of the world.
also, not
Um,
it's not we're at each other's necks. The white supremacists are on our necks. Black people are not on the necks of the white society. We're not on their necks. We're not subjugating anybody. We're not mass incarcerating anybody. We're not.
but sometimes it does seem like, and it sometimes it seems like you guys would like to be. That's still sometimes
That's
it seems like
that's a,
there's a kind of vengeance that is almost sought to
that's called
be
a projection.
realized.
That's a projection. Because if you've done detrimental things to a group of people for so long, you instinctively think, wow, these people are going to do the same thing to me one day. And we don't think like that. We just want our money, and we just want justice, and we just want to do our thing. So whatever you're doing, that's called a projection. We need the money that's owed to us. This whole thing. Whereas if we get on equal footing, and you said something very revealing, the thing is, and many people in the dominant society believe, if we get equal economic footing, you think that's going to give us the power to seek vengeance and get revenge for all of the detrimental things you've done to us over the centuries. And truth be told, we're not even thinking like that. We just want what's owed to us.
What else are we supposed to believe when there's papers that are written where they call whiteness a disease or a parasitic, or we see on CNN Van Jones says that every white person has a disease in their brain. It might be dormant, but it's always there. And what do you do with diseases? Well, you try and get rid of them. So and you see,
Sir,
but
sir,
there's a good cause there. But a lot of
sir,
the BLM people, you
hold on.
see the graffiti on statues, kill Whitey or Whitey this. I
Wait,
What
wait
else
a
is there to conclude?
Wait a minute, guys. You're acting like y'all didn't have a whole eugenics movement where y'all were saying that black people have flawed genetics, we have lower IQs. Like you don't have think tanks now that push the bell curve. Our IQs are lower. We have a criminal cell in our brains. You guys push this stuff now, and this type of stuff is used to marginalize us and to punish us unjustly. So you're doing that now. You talking about Van Jones? Nobody in black society takes Van Jones seriously. Van Jones is your guy. He toes the line for white supremacy. Quoting Van Jones, who's a puppet of white supremacy, that's a bad faith argument, sir. You got,
I didn't know that was your guys' opinion on him.
yeah, yeah. Van Jones is not a representative of black society whatsoever. And the thing is, again, you guys in the dominant society have marginalized us by making our blackness seem like a disease. And you've been punishing us for the last few centuries. So, again, there's a lot of projections there.
Understandable. Well, I think
Uh,
that was a good conversation, Tariq. I enjoyed it. Honestly, I did. I hope you feel the same way.
yes, indeed, man. Thank you so much for calling up, man. All right.
All right, take care. God bless.
All right, all right. Very interesting. Do you hear my dog snoring in the background? My dog is going to town. We got a lot of people in here. Almost 700 people. What's up, Jim Crow? What's up, Jim Crow? You here?
Yeah, I'm back. What's good? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's going on, Jim Crow?
What's going on, fam? And shout out to the FBA fam and the Encore family.
Yes, indeed.
So I'm just going back to the topic. You said international hate for FBA. I'm actually FBA. My girl's from Trinidad and Venezuela, and we met at my old job at social services. And at the time, I was listening to your Mac lessons episodes, but I really started locking in when you mentioned like race and relations with each other.
Yeah.
So when we met, her mom asked me, she was like, "Hey, where's he from?" And I was listening to your continent, and I was taking like the opposite pill, right? Like the Matrix. I wasn't aware to what was going on, like this, because we don't teach this in FBA households. A lot of us
Right.
we like to keep a blind eye to shit. So when the question hit me, I was like, "Yo, where she think I'm from?" She's like, "Oh, she thought you was Caribbean." I'm like, "Nah, I'm American." Because in New York, 9 times out of 10, look at a brother, most likely he's non-FBA.
Right. Right.
But I just had one last question. I bought the book today, and in the book you mentioned Dred Scott versus Sanford. What can we do to rectify that law?
Well, here's the thing, because they said that they rectified it by making all people citizens, but the thing is, it's now a common law, and that's the problem. So, common law is something that's not. Hold on, let me get you out. I'll do this off thing. Hold on, because I hear an echo. But the thing is, family, we got to understand the Dred Scott decision, which basically says A black man has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. Even though they've changed the wording on documents, it's still practiced in common law. So it's an understanding among those in the dominant society. When we go into a courtroom or we get into a situation where it's a white person against a black person, they're on code and they practice the common law without writing it down. It's just an understanding that, hey, this, we don't have to punish this white person in favor of this black person. We don't have to protect this black person's rights for this white person. That's why when we see situations where Karens are harassing black people or harming a black person, and then the police show up and the police is up there siding with the Karen, they're practicing the common law of the Dred Scott decision. Even though they'll tell you one thing, well, we don't have enough evidence. Well, there was no witnesses. Yeah, there was witnesses. There was a camera right there. Well, we have to look at the footage and get back with you. See, they give you all these excuses. They're practicing common law, meaning you have no rights that we're bound to respect. We got to understand how the common law of white supremacy work. It is a common law. That's why when Negroes run around here with fezzes on talking about the documents and the paperwork, man, that don't mean nothing. White supremacy operates off common law, nonverbal understanding of codifications. That's why we have to understand the power of codification and being codified. All right. I think that's been enough for tonight. I think we had a decent conversation. Listen, family, go check out the video game if you have iPhone. The new game, Ugly Turtle. It's a very exciting game on the Apple Store. It's going to be on the Google Play Store in a couple of days. But the new game, Ugly Turtle, is a phenomenal game, a very fun game. Y'all check that game out right now. Also, go to arutisussy.com, ARUTISUSE.com. We got the Arutisussy holiday package. Remember, we're going to be celebrating the Arutisussy holiday, Arise Day, December 24th. We're going to be trending that. Everybody on December 24th, use the hashtag Arutisussy. We're going to be celebrating that foundational Black American holiday with our own customs and culture. This is going to be a history-making moment. Um, Again, go to arutisussy.com for more information about that. Anyway, guys, I think we had a great constructive conversation tonight. Afro Elite, I see you down there, player. Juicy, I see you. Teslin, I see you. Sir Major, I see everybody in here. Much respect for everybody for tuning in. And I'm a holla. You guys be good. Puppy Akute and Lola Vuve to the family.